Well, good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch. Gonna cook my breakfast this morning and talk to you about a few things. Specifically, do we have any real reason or real evidence to start to become optimistic about the fact that maybe people aren't as stupid as they have seemed to be? Maybe our message is getting out a little bit against the barrage of propaganda and phony information about everything. I woke up this morning and my head early in the morning is always spinning. I'm saying, is it hopeless? Are we doomed? I made that video about the bird flu thing yesterday. And I think about that. And then I read the comments that I get. And I got a ton of comments on that video agreeing with me. A lot of them were political. A lot of them agreed that this is, yet another one of these moves. And the coincidence that this is an election year is really no coincidence. They label us as conspiracy theorists or deniers. They have tactics to counter anybody and cancel anybody that has an opinion that counters their message and their agenda. And being seated in positions of power in all aspects of our society, not just government, but industry, medicine, academia, they've got a hold on it. And they've used these time-proven tactics of attacking the messenger when anything contradicts what their agenda is. And here I am on YouTube trying to tell people and help people how to be healthy. So I always have to fall back. I have to fall back to my own experience. Because no matter what they say, they can't take away my results. They can't convince me of all the things that they're telling people, that eating the fruits and the vegetables and how important fiber is, and that red meat is dangerous and saturated fat is dangerous, and all the things that any logical person who did even the slightest little bit of research or had the ability in their head to have common sense and say, that can't make sense. How can the diet our species evolved on be harmful for us? Because that's what evolution is all about. Evolution only lets forward those things that work and deselects those things that don't work. So if meat was really harmful, if high cholesterol was really harmful, if all the things that they've come up with to show that their way is the real healthy way, their way having been invented in the most recent of history, the last instant compared to the monumental length of time, the eons of time, where evolution had its way to prove what's beneficial and what isn't. They have to resort to these tactics to demonize and cancel shame. And sadly, that's the definition of politics, a subject that I really try to avoid. Another subject I try to avoid is religion. And then, when you look back at the hand religion has had in furthering the ignorance and how deeply seated it is in most people, it's a third rail. You don't fool with it. So I'm handcuffed here trying to inject reality into this, and yet I know what reality is because I'm living it. 19 months since I've had 1 gram of dietary fiber. 19 months since I've eaten 1 gram of dietary carbohydrate, other than the traces that are in the animal products that I eat. By their standards, I should have died by now. I shouldn't be perfectly healthy. I shouldn't have had all my illnesses go away. I'm a freak. But somehow, by reverting back to what makes sense and what's logical, things have fixed themselves. I don't weigh 200 pounds anymore. I weigh 138 pounds. I've exceeded the lifespan of the average male in this country. And I'm getting better. And my brain is working better. How does that correlate with this overwhelming message? How does that correlate? It doesn't. It doesn't, because that overwhelming message is wrong. How are they getting away with it? How have they got us fooled? They use our emotions. They use our fears. They use our fear of things we can't see, like disease and bacteria. How do we keep spreading our message against this tidal wave of opposition? And how can we possibly affect any change at any level to not only turn around the dietary nonsense, but also the moves of all these powerful, politically motivated people to take away our freedoms, control us in the name of maintaining their position? How do we get this message out there? And is there any indication that we're all not just spinning our wheels, and that we're basically a very tiny percentage of the population that actually may be smart enough and have enough common sense to not fall for all of this information they keep putting out, and propaganda, and things that we've learned over generations to not question, because they come from what we think are people of authority and knowledge, when in reality, there's nothing that could be further from the truth. And yet, more and more information still manages to get out, thanks to the fact that there's alternative ways to spread messages through the internet. And even with all the censoring, and even with all the shadow banning, and all the shenanigans going on, we still have some basic freedoms in this country, and some of it is still getting through. And some of my message is still getting through. And I woke up this morning, like I said, and after reading the comments, I actually became a little optimistic. a little optimistic, but I had to go to Sam's Club this morning because I wanted to buy some eggs. So, of course, my first thought was, God, yesterday, and I showed you these videos, one after another, about bird flu, bird flu, bird flu, bird flu, bird flu, this, that, and the other thing. I said, God, there must be a run on the store. A run on the store. People are going to panic. They're going to fall for this again because they're not smart enough to recognize the patterns in these things. Even though my viewers, the few thousand of you that watched that video I made yesterday, actually almost 100% commented that they understood this, which is very heartening to me. And I go into Sam's Club, and of course I take out my camera usually to photograph something in case I might want to use it in a video. So I photographed a few things, and I'm going to show you these pictures that I photographed. One of them was of the cooler where the eggs were. There were more eggs in there than I've ever seen at one time. It was incredible. I walked in there, and they were stacked to as high as they could be stacked. And the prices haven't gone up. The prices were exactly the same as the last time. That made me feel great. That made me feel optimistic. I said, people, evidently yesterday with that incredible media push, public relations campaign to sell all of us this idea that we're coming into a new pandemic and we're going to have to be wearing hazmat suits in our houses because 100 times worse is going to be 100 times worse than the last pandemic. People aren't buying that. People are finally waking up a little bit. And that was heartening to me. That made me feel good. And I felt optimistic. And I said, maybe our message is doing something. It made me a little bit proud. Is everybody following me on YouTube? No. But the few people that are, get it. And it's working for you. And that makes me feel good. And I like to feel good. And I like to feel positive. And I like to beat my eggs. Thank you. So maybe there is hope. Maybe there is hope. For me, no matter what happens, if I get disgusted and decide I've done everything I can and the world keeps going on in stupidity and addiction, then the one thing I know for sure is that I'm not going to change the way I eat. And as long as there's still steakhouses, as long as there's still meat available, and I really believe they'll never stop that. There's too much money being made in the sale of meat. And the good news is, as long as there's a demand for something, somebody somewhere will figure out a way to supply it. Regardless of the shenanigans they come up with, I'm going to keep doing this. It works. It's the truth. It is the real deal. Continue learning about this, learning about carnivore. Continue trying to overcome the propaganda and all of the things that are making it hard for you. The primary one of those being an addiction. And in reality, It is that addiction that's the biggest enemy that we have in getting our message out. It's the reason why people think we're nuts. It's the reason why they don't want to do it. It's because their addiction won't let them. They think they have to give up all of life's pleasures. Those should be the targets of our message. Should be talking about how to overcome the addiction. Because if we can't overcome that addiction or convince those addicted people, which has got to be 90% of us, as evidenced by the crap people put in their mouths, if we can't convince those addicted people that they can overcome it, and how much better their life's going to be, then we really do have no chance. So I know maybe I've been wandering with my thoughts here, but I just wanted to say that today, for the first time in a while, I actually felt a little optimistic about our little revolution of a few people that have common sense and see reality for what it is. And we all need to keep going, and we need to keep spreading the word where we can. And that's the only way this thing will ever get fixed. So I'm going to eat my breakfast here today. I'm going to feel good. I'm not ranting. No rants today. And I'm going to give you the rest of the day off and tell you to eat meat.